Hello and welcome back to Paranormal NL Podcast, located in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. That's PNL Podcast for short. I'm your host and founder, Jen Nosworthy. Thank you for tuning in to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM New Orleans and 105.3 FM on that Gulf. For tonight's It Came from the Maritime special on UPRN PNL segment number 50. I've got two guests tonight waiting backstage from Nova Scotia, Canada, who I'll bring on shortly. Now it's time to grab your favorite beverage, a few munchies, and get ready for the Canadian show tonight. Paranormal NL Podcast is sponsored by the Bog Team. It's a boots on the ground Bog Team doing historical paranormal investigations in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. Bog Team music heard in the PNL Podcast intro and exit is available for download on all of our social media and music streaming platforms. Follow PNL Podcast and the Bog Team on all their socials and Linktree Paranormal NL Podcast. And check out their merch and smash that subscribe button. Tune in to UPRN for PNL every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. PNL Podcast believes in supporting international paranormal networking and highlighting global paranormal people, places, and things. Now, let's get on with the show. Tonight, I have on with me, I've got Evan and I've got Chelsea. Where did Evan go? There he is. It Came from the Maritimes. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show. It's really great to have an Atlantic Canada folks on the show tonight. So tell us a little bit about yourselves. Who wants to start first?
So I can start first if
Okay, Chelsea.
Works. Yeah, so I'm Chelsea and this is my younger brother, Evan.
Howdy.
And yeah, we grew up in Nova Scotia and we've spent most of our lives living here. We each moved away for a few years for our university degrees, but we were both drawn back. I mean, there's something about that Atlantic Ocean we just couldn't stay away from. So we have always loved learning more about Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada in general. And we found a really fun way to do that was by diving into the folklore of the region. And we always joke that I used to learn all the local spooky stories at campfires and Girl Guide camps, and I would come home and traumatize Evan with them. So now I get to traumatize everyone.
I love that. I love that you said, hey, that you love the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, I had to come back from Texas. I couldn't stay away from the Atlantic. How about you, Evan?
Yeah, much like Chelsea said there, I know Chelsea was much more into kind of the paranormal, creepy side of things when we were younger. I was, to a degree, but more in the Scooby-Doo kind of way.
The Scooby-Doo way?
Yeah, whereas Chelsea was always about ghost stories. She would come home, and even when it wasn't local things, she would tell me about the horror movie that she watched, and then I would get to be scarred by that. But as we grew up, I've kind of grown an interest too, and then just the local folklore is just so interesting. It kind of tells you about the people and the values and everything about what's going on. And then, of course, Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada, all around here, there's some good storytellers, so they keep things interesting, and we want to just share those with our podcast.
I love that. And Chelsea and Evan, for the people listening around the world who don't quite know what it means when we say Atlantic Canada, can you explain to them what that means?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So it's kind of the part of Canada, the east coast of Canada on the Atlantic Ocean. Most people would say it includes Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, and Newfoundland. And yeah, it kind of just has a certain type of population there that tends to be pretty interesting, but that's where we get a lot of good stories from.
Yeah, so there's Canada, and then there's like Maritime Canada, and we kind of make fun of each other and call them mainlanders, right? So yeah, and even the same for us Newfies over here. I know a lot of folks to kind of make fun of us because we're the most easterly point in North America, and we're almost on top of Ireland, so we're very Irish over here. And in Nova Scotia, what are you guys renowned for in your culture?
So there's a huge fishing culture here, a big seafaring community. So I do find we have a lot of that on the go. There's I find Nova Scotia, we have a wide range of folks, but I feel like we might not be known for having quite as good a time as people in Newfoundland are, but we're known for enjoying.
That's right. I'm going to have to screech you in one of these days.
Oh,
So let's do it. Like, where did or how did it came from the Maritimes come about between the two of y'all?
Yeah, so it was Evan's idea. So Evan, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. So I was kind of thinking we both work in pretty technical jobs in our day to day, so we don't really get to do anything creative or too fun in our day to day work. And I was kind of looking at things, and I've been listening to podcasts obsessively for years and years, and I was thinking like, oh, maybe I should try that. So then kind of that's where things came from there. And then I was thinking about things that interested me, and I'm pretty interested in things like, I'd say more the monster side of things, like cryptids, some mysterious stories around, and that kind of led me to the folklore side of things and superstitions and things like that. And then, of course, I know Chelsea's, I'd say between the two of us, the more spooky one, the one who loves Halloween and ghosts and horror movies and things like that. And I kind of just came to her, and I think I kind of suggested a little bit sheepishly at first. I was kind of like, hey, maybe we should start a podcast, haha. And then Chelsea, luckily, was like, yeah, we should. And then, I mean, honestly, like, I might have got things going, but Chelsea's like the steam engine that keeps us going, because she just kind of took it and ran with it. And like a week later was there like, oh, I have 3 scripts ready. She had her husband writing us a theme song. She had everything set up, and yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. But where did you guys meet? I thought you all were brothers and sisters or something.
Oh, we are. Yes. Yeah. So we're brothers and sisters, but brother and sister, we kind of got the opportunity to do this because Evan had been living in Toronto for school. So when he moved back, we were able to well, of course we always stayed in touch, but just reconnect and really start chatting about this.
I love that. Yeah. Because, being that we're from Atlantic Canada, everybody knows everybody, right? And a lot of people don't want to talk about the paranormal. And that's part of the reason why I started this up. Because especially here in Newfoundland, it's such a small place. They're all like, oh, I know who they're talking about. Or so, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. And, I've had a lot of people come on anonymously. Have you had that problem with some of your guests? Oh, I like your little friend in the background there, Chelsea.
Oh, do I?
You got a 4-legged friend. Yeah.
That's probably so very fittingly for someone who loves all the spooky stuff. That's my cat Poe, after Edgar Allan Poe. So he likes to be involved. But yeah.
So do you find that with your area that a lot of people are kind of shy about coming on, or where do you find most of your things that you talk about are mostly around Nova Scotia, or do you scope out a little bit further out?
Yeah, so most of our inspiration comes from stories we've heard locally and then decided to research on our own. So for example, one of our first episodes, one of my neighbors told me, I live near Lawrencetown Beach in Nova Scotia, and one of my neighbors told me about this gray lady at E43 Beach down the road. So then I started looking for local books that mentioned her, local sources, and kind of spiraled from there. And I do find though, it's interesting because we've attended quite a few local markets just to help promote the podcast and let people know we're out there. And just as a way to get a conversation going, Evan created these great signs that say, tell us your ghost stories or tell us your cryptid sightings, just as to kind of pique folks' interest. And people come over and they're like, oh, like, well, I don't believe in any of that stuff. But when I was a kid, I did see this woman standing at the end of my bed, and I think it was the ghost of my grandmother. So it's like people are really reluctant to be upfront about it, but almost everyone has a story, or at least a friend of a friend who has had an
That is
encounter.
definitely true, and I love the fact that you have a lot of different creatures in there too, because, I'm a big fan of the cryptids, and, do you have a story that you wanna talk about with any particular cryptid? Because 'Cause you've got a lot of fun cryptids with your stories. Did you wanna choose 1 or 2 or talk about them?
I think kinda one of the stories that Evan did that ended up getting us the most traction was probably Cabot's. So, do you wanna take that away?
Yeah, so I'm not sure why, but this one started a debate on our social media because people were saying it couldn't be real, but we talked about Cabots, which are a cat-rabbit hybrid, which, I
Oh,
mean, genetically probably not super probable. Um, but it's just a thing that it's kind of like that tale that your uncle tells you when he's walking after he walked home drunk from the bar. He's kind of like, I was walking
kinda
home.
like a jackalope or something, right? So it's a
Yes.
Ex-
cabot so it's half rabbit and half cat?
exactly, yeah, and it's kind of
Okay.
like, yeah, I was walking home and then I saw this thing and it wasn't quite a cat and it wasn't quite a rabbit. It looked like a cat, but it was hopping like a rabbit or something like that. And there's it's kind of more popular in certain areas, like around the area where I live, kind of on the west side of Nova Scotia, there in the valley. A lot of people seem to have sightings around there, but there's also kind of an interesting population around there, and also people like to exaggerate some. So
So tell us about more about what it looks like. I know we both know what a cat and a rabbit, like, looks like, but what are some more like, it's a cat with really big ears or tiny
uh,
tail or
so yeah, as a cat, its ears are a bit bigger, and it tends to have kind of like a little puffy tail, and then the kind of big back legs.
okay,
It's kind of interesting because if you go deeper into the story, some you can find some things where it's like, well, maybe this is a certain type of I think a lynx or a Manx cat or something. There's certain
right?
species where it could just be that, but it's also just kind of fun to think like, well, maybe it is just a cat and a rabbit had a baby, and then they got loose in the woods there, and they've just been hopping around confusing people.
Yeah, because we certainly got a lot of links and stuff like that. I know around our area here in Newfoundland, we got a lot of links and stuff. And, I know you've got a lot of other different, creatures that come up, in your podcast. I love you've got mermaids, and there's the cat one again. Is there another one that you wanna talk about?
Um,
I
Chelsea,
know.
do you want to?
Yeah, one of my favorite kind of creature type episodes that I researched was the Mermaids of Atlantic Canada episode. And for me growing up, I was obsessed with mermaids. I actually, when I was like little, thought that if I stayed in the water long enough, I could turn into one. So
Oh, I love that.
like it was a big part of my childhood. My mom would be saying it's time to come in for dinner. And I'm like, no, just a few minutes longer. Today's the day. But I found what I loved about the mermaids episode was it really did bring us across so many parts of Atlantic Canada. One of the first stories I told in that episode was of a documented mermaid sighting, and it was from like the mid 1600s in the St. John's Harbor.
Ooh,
And there was a captain of a ship who
St. John's,
saw,
Newfoundland?
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Interesting.
So he
Okay.
ended up seeing this, and I can find the exact name for you too if I
Yeah.
brought up the episode notes. But the ship captain, they were in the harbor getting ready to head out to sea, and all of a sudden, this long feminine creature with they called it like a broad hooked arrow tail and long, streaky hair climbed up on the side of the boat and started swiping at them. So they
Hmm.
used oars to kind of batter away. But then she came back up and started kind of pursuing them again. So they knocked her off the boat and then she just swam to another boat in the harbor. And that was the end of the tale. But there's just been quite a few sightings, even dating back to like when there were European people first exploring Canada. There's drawings and books of these mermaid type creatures that people came
Yes.
across in the St. Lawrence River. So
Yeah, I know I have a huge, I guess, family seafaring background. Like my grandfather was a sea captain, a fisherman, and also my great great grandfather and my great great great, so all the way back even down to the Boer War, and a lot of them would call them sirens. You know, they
Yeah.
would come up to your boat. In fact, I think on my inside my logo in here, I've got a siren in here in the water somewhere,
Yes.
trying to lure the sailors out into the sea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. Evan, do you want to chime in on any other ones? I know we've got a lot of other stuff in here in the Maritimes with all kinds of different creatures.
Yeah, one of them I'd say, and I mean, this one I think was our first episode where we talked about Newfoundland, and then people got mad at us because
What?
our title is "It Came from the Maritimes," but we're technically Atlantic Canada. We just
Yeah,
liked how it
yeah.
sounded, but I'm not sure if you've talked about this before, but the Newfoundland wild bologna.
Oh my God, I love it. For people who are tuning in around the world who don't know what a wild bologna is, it's something that people go and catch in the woods, especially when they're out camping and stuff. And Maple Leaf usually makes it. I'll let
Yeah,
you tell more about it.
yeah, it's kind of like it was supposedly the wild version of bologna that you buy like at the grocery store, and it's like, no, the grocery store stuff, that's just the fake stuff. But if you want the real stuff, you gotta catch the wild bologna.
That's right. You got to go out in the woods and get it. And part of the screeching in here in Newfoundland and Labrador, we've got this liquor rum called Screech that will make you drink. We also make you kiss a codfish, and we usually feed you bologna and purity syrup and make you kiss a puffin czars. So, but bologna is a big part of Newfoundland and Labrador. They call it steak here. You can put it on anything, the barbecue, everything. But sure, even my brother's niece did a book report on the wild bologna because she's from Ontario, and her dad is from Newfoundland.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love that.
that's the thing. That was one that we had a lot of fun with, and there's a whole lot of stories about it, and it's just kind of a like such a fun piece of folklore.
Well, that's why I really was looking forward to talking to y'all, because where else are you going to talk to people about a Newfoundland wild bologna anywhere else in the world, right? Besides the Atlantic Canada.
Yeah, and I love it. If you look around, you'll get a bunch of different stories, but the ones that I found included a lot of stuff like you can't wear your rubber boots because the wild bologna will like eat your rubber boots or something like that. And then to catch it, it's very curious but also very fast, so you need to leave some pepper somewhere. So then we'll sniff the pepper, and then it will make it sneeze. And when it sneezes, it will hit its head down on the rock that you leave the pepper on, and that's how you catch it because it will knock itself out.
One
Um,
of our folks here on NTV, his name is Donnie Love. He was on Paranormal NL podcast in season 1. Well, now he's on NTV, and he's got his own show, Adventures Unknown. So him and the boys were out skidooing, and they had somebody there from somewhere else. So they had to go and catch the wild bologna, right? So that was part of a show that they did. Yeah, it's a big thing here, and a lot of times, like when I mentioned about the screeching in, a lot of people wear the sou'westers. Like Chelsea, you were talking about people fishing. That's a
Yeah.
hat, typical yellow, and a yellow jacket that people wear. But what other kind of folklore things do you want to talk about?
I'd say one of the other stories that I like, and this one's one that's kind of like gets more to the scary side of things, is
Okay.
the Dagger Woods Heidi Hinder, or there's a lot of different names, the Howler, Screecher, things like that. But it's an
Ooh.
area in Nova Scotia around Antigonish. But either way, it's an area called Dagger Woods, and it's known for being very haunted and spooky. But this one monster, the Heidi Hinder, it's thought to either be maybe a ghost or maybe a man who was kind of turned into a monster or maybe possessed. Like there's so many different versions that it's hard to say exactly what. But it said that you'll hear the screeches coming or the howls, and they'll be gradually getting closer. And every time you turn around, there will be nothing behind you, because whatever it is, it's always hiding behind you. So the hide behind your name.
So it's kind of like a Bigfoot or something, eh?
Yeah, like there's kind of different versions. One of them is like a kind of goblin monster thing. Sometimes it's more of just like a serial killer thing. But you just
There's
never,
a range.
yeah, you just never see it to know. And the one story of the person who survived is a girl who was out in the woods when she wasn't supposed to be, and then she was looking around and kept on spinning trying to see it, and eventually she fell down, but right beside a puddle or a creek or some body of water, and then she saw the reflection of it coming up behind her in the water, and that's the one way that she was able to like beat it and get away.
Ooh, almost like a vampire, right? Because you can't see the reflections in the mirror.
Exactly, yeah. But I think there's even, Chelsea, it's the Stanfields, right, who did the song about it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, there's a song too?
Yeah,
The
but
Heidi Hinders? How does it go?
geez, it's,
Go make you sing now.
I was about to say I haven't listened to it in a little bit, but it's definitely worth a listen. It kind of changes the story a little bit to its own version too. So, but yeah.
Yeah, you got all kinds. You got fairies over there too.
We do, yes. Yeah. There's so rumored to be at least 5 fairy hills within Nova Scotia. So a lot of the
Wow.
activity seems centered around Cape Breton, but it's kind of cool because, for example, we grew up camping in Kejimkujik National Park, and we went canoeing on the lake there every summer. But I only found out when I started researching the fairies of Nova Scotia that lake, its original name would translate to Fairy Lake, and it's because there were supposed to be this group of little people with magical powers that lived around the lake that would, yeah, they resided there. They were known to be pretty benevolent creatures overall, but there's actually petroglyphs on the nearby rocks that show these depictions of the fairies there. So
Okay, so your fairies are friendly, hey? So
it
we
depends.
kind of got both here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We got fairy tree ring circles, and you're not supposed to tell anybody where the circles are, because then the fairies will come and get you. And then we've got the queen of the fairies over in Bell Island, who is who is very evil, right? So when we think about fairies, most of the time over here, it's more like Irish, like kind of evil fairy who will come and get you. Like you got to go around with bread in your pockets or leave out bread for them, or, stuff like that.
Yeah, I do find here some of the stories, the fairies are a little more nefarious, but for the most part, it's, for example, the Acadian population, they call fairies the Lutins. And it seems like all these fairies do is braid horses' hair at night and take them out for a spin. And then, so it's how people explain if their horse seems tired in the morning, the Lutins must have taken it for a
I've heard
ride.
that too, because we've got the
Yeah.
little Newfoundland ponies, and they say that they do mischievous stuff like braiding the little Newfoundland ponies' hair, because our ponies get really long, bad hairdos. I see you've also got vampires of is it Inquinish?
Yes. Yeah, so English, it's on the Cabot Trail in Cape Breton. And this story actually, so a paranormal investigator from Cape Breton, when he found out about the podcast, reached out to let us know about this tale. And it was back in, so I want to say 1996. There was a really stormy summer. There were quite a few storm surges in the area, just really windy. The waves were intense each and every day. But the other thing that happened that summer was people started seeing this mysterious man, and he was just never quite where you'd expect someone to be. So people would be coming back from like a hunting trip late at night, and they'd see him standing in the cemetery by himself.
Oh.
Or they'd see him hitchhiking, and they'd pull over because they're all very friendly in Cape Breton. They'd offer to pick him up and take him where he had to go. He'd get in silently, and when they looked in the rearview mirror, he'd be gone. So bunch of mysterious occurrences like that culminated at the end of the summer when a huge storm was rolling in. And there was a couple sitting on the beach just watching the waves before it got too dangerous and they had to head back home. And they saw this mysterious man standing on the edge of the cliff. But even though the winds were ripping, not a single hair on his head was moving. His cloak wasn't moving an inch. And then in the blink of an eye, he disappeared. So because of his kind of dark and mysterious appearance and his mysterious behavior, they started calling him the vampire. And if you go on certain paranormal Facebook groups in Nova Scotia, there's so many people, like even someone commented on our podcast episode on Spotify saying, oh my gosh, my dad saw him back in the 90s.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, do you think he's kind of like Hetman?
Well, do you know what? I've heard that story just kind of vaguely since, and it did remind me of that.
Yeah,
Right.
no one really has any proof of him like drinking blood or anything really vampiric, but I think it was just kind of like he had a generally kind of goth style and was doing a lot of mysterious things around that seemed kind of vampire-y.
Yeah, because I recently had Dawn Wells on, and she's on 5TV1, and from Cape Breton, she's got a series there. And hers talk about the Hat Man also, which is kind of interesting. It's quite popular over in the Atlantic area. Not only just our area, but it seems like across the world. So I know that you've got a lot of other different creature stories. What about, I see there's one, is it a serpent?
Oh, the Cape Sable serpent.
The Cape Sable serpent is it's a sea monster that was seen in the area of Cape Sable, so kind of like the southern tip of Nova Scotia. And it was kind of known to be out there harassing the fishermen. All the descriptions kind of varied. It seems like a lot of them said that it had kind of like a head like a seal, but almost with eyes out on little stalks.
Okay. Kind of like a crab would, right? Like
yeah.
this? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was kind of weird, but then it's said to have like big sword-like teeth, and it was chasing down fishing boats, and the first guy came in saying like, this monster came out of the fog and almost ate me and tried to get me, and everyone kind of laughed at him. And then over the next couple of weeks, it seems like the exact same thing happened to a couple more people in the town, and then it just kind of disappeared. Like there was one thing that said it was maybe seen up closer to Newfoundland at one point, but that description sounded a lot different than what people were describing as the Cape Sable serpent, so could be a different sea monster there.
Yeah, it sounds different. It almost sounds like an eel or a Nessie or combination of all kinds, right?
Yeah, and the thing is just like, it was always on foggy days and things, so of course no one gets a perfect description, but it does seem like it was chasing down the fishing boats there. So
you know, you never know, because there's been a lot of specials on the go lately. Our oceans have changed a lot with the temperature of the Atlantic. Now we've got great white sharks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary. I mean, we have little competitions, swimming competitions. I know, going across the Belle Island Tickle. I don't think I'd want to swim across the ocean with the makos and great white sharks out there. It's like, no thanks.
Yeah, I don't think I would want to either. I'm as much as I love being close to the ocean, I'm pretty happy on dry land.
Yeah. And there's quite a few other different big creatures that we can talk about, like the Newfoundland giant squid. Have you guys had some stories about giant squids over your way too?
So none. It does seem to be something that's more close to Newfoundland. Like we have quite a few like sea serpent type creatures, but I'm not familiar with any kind of local giant squid stories, but I find them fascinating.
Yeah, there are so many different creatures, right, out of the ocean coming up. And you've got a lot of different campfire stories too. You've got, let's see, like a werewolf, all kinds of different ones.
Yeah, we find it kind of fun to Because we do, like, of
Well, I
course.
guess before we talk about fires, we should,
Yeah.
tell everybody who had fires in Canada, give out some prayers and love to everybody. I know we're talking about campfire stories, but because it was the Labor Day weekend not too long ago and stuff. But yeah, so what kind of quote unquote campfire stories do you guys have?
Yeah, so for us, we considered, like, what we kind of labeled our campfire stories was just anything that if you were sitting in the forest in the dark of night and you heard those stories, if you heard those branches creak behind you, it would give you kind of make you think twice. I know one of the ones that I shared, and it's one of my favorite local folklore stories. It's kind of a little bit of a sad one, is Catherine McIntosh's grave. And the story that comes along with that is on a rural road in Pictou County, Nova Scotia. If you drive down a few kilometers and look right, you'll see this isolated gravestone in the middle of a clearing in the woods. And it's surrounded and covered in toys. And it's actually been quite well maintained by the local community. And it's the
Hmm.
gravestone of a girl who passed away in the 1800s whose family used to live in the area, but she wasn't allowed to be buried in the family plot because of a disagreement with a neighbor. So there's all these rumors that come with the story. So
Hmm.
I drove there alone last summer on my way to a camping trip. So when you're alone, things are already a little spookier. You're in the middle of the woods. I had seen no one else on the road for probably like 45 minutes. So it was a quiet area. And the folklore with the story is that if you're there, you need to leave a toy or something bad will happen to you. So I had brought a small doll that I bought. But then if you leave your door open, the spirit of this young girl is supposed to jump in your car. And people who are
Uh-oh.
there, they've seen like little kids' handprints on their car in the dust. They've heard giggling behind them. And when I was there, the sun was probably an hour or two away from setting. So, the light starts to dim a little bit. It's shining through the trees. And you start to swear that you're seeing shadows running around you. So it was a very spooky spot. And it definitely made me think twice before sleeping in a tent that night.
Now, you guys have done some of your own, like different paranormal investigations and been to a couple different places. Did you want to talk about any of those? I think I've got. I'll bring it up on the picture. I'll let you tell us about this one.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
remember anything about this one?
So Evan, that was your kind of
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, so that's the Mount Uniacke estate. So it belonged to a prominent figure in Nova Scotia history there, and he built a really nice estate. He was originally from Ireland, so he built it based on like Ireland history and all that. But at some point, basically all of this guy's extended family has lived in this house, and now it's a museum. So then, if you ask anyone, they're going to tell you basically there's like hundreds of ghosts in this house, or at least a couple dozen, but there's a couple of main ones over there. And that tends to be Richard Uniacke's wife and his daughter. And they're just two people who seem to have kind of had hard lives and have, for whatever reason, chosen to stick around. But if you go to the Uniacke Estate Facebook page, they're even telling stories on there.
Okay, well, that's great for paranormal tourism because, there's not a whole lot here in Newfoundland. Do you guys have a lot of paranormal tourism there in Nova Scotia?
I'd say I know around the whole province we have a lot of people doing like ghost walks and things like that. Chelsea, you'd probably be better. You're the one who goes to these types of things more than me.
So I find I really do love how open about the hauntings Uniacke Estate house the museum is, because it's so cool to see. I do find there's a few places that are a little quieter about their haunted history. But for the most part, like for example, the Halifax Citadel National Historic Site, our old military base, they do ghost tours throughout the summer into kind of spooky season in the fall. So they're really open about their ghost stories.
Nice.
And yeah.
So I love that fact that you do have some paranormal tourism there in Nova Scotia, because it seems like a lot of places shy away from it. But I think for the heritage, like we've got the oldest city here in St. John's in North America. So we're trying to get a lot of the establishments to embrace the heritage and do more paranormal tourism. Like recently, we had a museum in Torbay reach out to us last year, and we had a successful event there. But I see you've got here Paraflix. Were you on this one? The Great Lady?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So it was such a cool experience. We were invited by, so the production company is called Paranova Productions. We were invited to join a paranormal investigation for their new TV show, Paranormal Contact. And all episodes are now streaming on this streaming service, Paraflix. And they're also going to be available on the Beyond Haunting channel and on Eastlink, I believe, come October.
Okay,
which is
nice.
it's a local TV station. I don't know if it's over in Newfoundland.
It might be with 5TV1 or is Eastlink maybe different?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know the Beyond Haunting channel is quite a few places. But with the investigation, it was the first time either of us had done anything like that. And so we just went into it with kind of complete openness. We were just happy to be there. And we got to investigate. So the Port Royal habitation, which is the building's a recreation of the very first European settlement that was built in Canada.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so that itself is a cool spot to visit. And then also Stony Beach, that's why we got invited to join this episode, because we had covered the Grey Lady of Stony Beach in one of our past podcast episodes.
No, the Grey Lady of Stony Beach, is this the Grey Lady one that you were telling me about at the big top of the podcast?
So this is a different one. Nova Scotia has no shortage of Grey Ladies.
Okay.
So this Grey Lady, as they so often do, has a bit of a tragic tale, but she was from a foreign port and she got seduced by a fisherman and invited to join him at sea. But as he was getting close to home, he realized he was going to need to deal with her because he had a wife and family waiting for him. So one day when they were in port at Annapolis Royal, he took her to shore asking if she wanted to go for a walk, and he returned to the ship, but she never did. And rumor had it that he actually took off her head to make her corpse impossible to identify and hid her in the deep grass.
Oh my God.
Surrounding the beach. So her spirit has been seen on the shore in the decades ever since.
Yeah, I would do the same thing, saying, "Hey, have you seen my head anywhere?"
Right?
Because we use Spirit Box sometimes, and we get these rando ghosts coming on, like, "Can you help me?" Or what can we help you with? Can you help me find my body? Like, so who knows how many different people had beheadings and things like that, and there's poor lost souls looking around that can't find their body.
Oh, it's true, because I know the medium who joined the investigation was saying that she was getting the impression that the woman, she wanted to be prayed for, but she was Catholic, so she only wanted to be prayed for if we had a rosary, which we didn't have on us. So we were kind of stuck at that point. But it was, I find the beach itself, it was kind of creepy being there.
Yeah, we've been there during the day, but never it was like 11 at night or something there, and the guy who like runs the parks would just say like, "Yeah, see you guys later. Walk up on your way out." And it was interesting because we had all the little tools and everything like that, taking readings. It seemed like wherever I would go, nothing wanted to be, but then Chelsea would be kind of over in a corner and start to get like the temperature dropping, and then like some little readings. And
nice.
The temperature dropped when I was in the chapel confessional. It dropped by about 3 degrees, which
like in like less than a minute.
Yeah, it was quite abrupt. And then when Evan went in and climbed right back up to where it was before. So
Interesting. So, we've
Apparently,
noticed that when we have certain members of our team who are very skeptic, it pisses off the spirits. So I wonder that particular spirit was angry having somebody, around who wasn't getting any information. I wonder, are you a believer, Evan?
I'd say of the two of us, I'm more of a skeptic. I was trying to go in with an
Aha.
open mind, but
You're the Scully. Okay, so Chelsea, are you the Mulder?
oh yeah.
Okay. So tell us more about this Mulder and Scully thing. Have you ever seen UFOs or anything like that?
So I've had a few, like nothing definitive, but I've had a few experiences. Like for example, recently I was at White Point Beach Resort, which is actually one of the haunted resorts in Nova Scotia.
Okay.
But my family was sitting in front of one of the cottages, which had a view of the ocean. And both my aunt and I swear that we saw some sort of sea creature. It wasn't a seal, it wasn't a shark, it didn't have like that shape. It was something that we hadn't seen before, and it was huge because
Okay.
we had two marks we had two rocks that we were using as markers, and it stretched between them. So our cell phones aren't great, so we couldn't get any sort of photo or anything, but so something like that. And then I have had probably like one or two experiences that like kind of I couldn't explain, just something I've seen. Or once when I was in a room with no one around me, I felt like someone tugged my pant leg. And it turns out, I found out after, I didn't know this going in, that I was standing next to this, or I was standing about 2 feet away from this desk that a little girl used to hide under and pull on her father's pant leg.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So nothing that,
Nothing
yeah,
scary, just kind of benevolent.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
little gestures.
yeah, kind of playful. Well, a lot of times if you're not really, I guess, tuned in at the time, you won't even notice some of these things. But they say the more you look into the paranormal, of course, the more it knows and it looks at you and tries to get your attention. So, Evan, have you had any of your own experiences?
um, I'm gonna say I was like secondary to something where my wife, I think, had some sort of experience, where it wasn't anything too scary, but we were in this old antique shop that's like in an old barn, and it's very kind of eccentric and like low ceilings, and everything's kind of haphazardly laid out. But I know there was this one painting of a little girl, and it just had these really haunting eyes. And I remember thinking, like, oh, I'm gonna send a picture of this to Chelsea, she'll love it. And I was like, no, I can't take a picture of this. This thing's like, that's gonna do something bad. Like, even I knew. And then my wife, she kept on walking by the same area, and every time she would say, like, oh, excuse me. And I thought she was just being like polite Canadian, like accidentally bumping into a table or something and saying sorry to it. But it turns out she had walked by this area like 3 or 4 times, and every time she was like, oh yeah, every time, where's that woman? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, every time I walk by there's this woman, and I like keep on almost running into her because I can like just not quite see her. And like, she got the description, it sounds like it was a grown-up version of this little girl.
Really?
And
Interesting.
and it was very strange. And I know I haven't seen that painting when I've been back to that shop. We were back like a month after, but it was just so strange. It was like every time she walked by that painting, she like thought she was just about to run into some woman. And like, because I was there, and I was, after like 3 or 4 times, I was like, what are you talking about? There's no one there. And she was like, the woman right here. And then she like turned around and was like, oh, I guess not.
Yeah, I love all the ghosty stuff. And when people talk about paranormal, it's not all ghosty. There's everything. There's high strangeness, there's everything, and everything that's unexplained.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite one of your stories that you've talked about?
Hmm.
Yeah,
I'd say. You go ahead,
oh,
Chelsea.
so I'd say my favorite one that I covered, and it's a pretty like big story, but was the Shag Harbor UFO sighting, just because
Okay.
there was so much evidence behind it and so many eyewitness accounts.
Didn't they recently have their festival, or is that coming up soon?
I think that's coming up just next month. Yeah.
Fun.
But
Okay.
yeah, last year I went to their UFO interpretive center, and it's such a cool little spot. They have so much information there. And
Yeah,
we got to
tell us
see, yeah.
about it.
Yeah, so it was back in, I want to say 1967. There were these flashing lights seen over Shag Harbor on the south shore of Nova Scotia. And they were seen, like the entire community came out. They saw them. They were all standing by the shoreline. And essentially, these flashing lights dove, hovered above the ocean, and then submerged. But people assumed at first that maybe an airplane had crashed, so they got out in their boats. But there was this really like thick, oily yellow slick left on the water where this vessel had gone in. And in more recent years, there have been undercover sources that have come out from the Navy that have revealed that they actually tracked this vessel all the way underwater to a nearby base. And there was at least one person in the Navy who wanted to stay anonymous, of course, who reported that they saw another vessel join them and then they took off. So it seems like there was a little more going on below the surface that's just been revealed in recent years.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of USO stuff that a lot of folks haven't really talked about. And some of the whistleblowers you're starting to hear more of it now. When you tune in to, I don't know if it's on CNBC or MSNBC or whatever channel, Congress are having a lot of people come forward, and a lot of USOs have been talked about.
Oh yeah, and because I know even recently the Shag Harbor UFO group, they did a like UFO eyewitness meetup so people could come and share their tales. And apparently they had a huge turnout. So it would be really cool to attend one of those in the future and just
Yeah, a lot more
learn.
people are talking about it. It seems like the paranormal is starting to get kind of normal now to talk about. More people are coming forward and telling their stories. Do you find that with some of the things or people who you talk to?
I'd say when it comes to getting stories, because we're just kind of a lot of the times we'll just be collecting stories from people, seeing what's going on.
Right.
And I find there's almost a thing of people will kind of walk up and kind of like lean on our table a little bit and be like, "Tell us your ghost stories, hey?" Huh. Like kind of like a little like laugh or something, and then like look a little sheepishly for a minute, and then be like, "Well, I did see this."
I
So it's
love
kind
that.
of
That
like
always happens, right?
I find especially kind of like older people, it tends to be kind of like a little
Mm.
bit sheepish, and then I find younger people, it will be like one of their friends dragging them over, and it'll be like, "Tell them about that ghost that you saw," or "Tell them about this thing." And it's always it's kind of interesting. But yeah, it's definitely, I'd say it's a lot of people are a lot more open to talk about things than you would expect, especially like we just kind of leave ourselves as an open ear, and people are happy to tell us.
Love that. Do you have any favorite folklores that you like to talk about that we haven't discussed?
I
There's
know
so
one
many
of,
different. Yeah, there's another one in your region.
yeah, with it, I know one of my favorite stories, just going back to that White Point Beach resort where I may or may not have seen some sort of sea creature, is so this was my like original ghost story I heard, and it's the story of Ivy. She was the wife of the previous owner of White Point Beach Resort. And Evan and I, we'd go there for a few nights each summer. And it was back in the day, so there were, I guess, less helicopter parents out and about. So all the kids that signed up would be canoed to this island in a lake. It was about 50 meters off from shore. We'd have hot dogs, marshmallows, set up tents, and then tell these spooky stories. And the story of Ivy, essentially, she's a harmless spirit. In the old lodge, she would just be seen rearranging utensils, hanging out in the dining room, which she used to manage, but she would also play the piano late at night. And Evan and I, when we were kids, we'd stay up as late as we were allowed. So we would be in the lodge, and they had like a little pool table in the games room. And I remember there were a few nights after hearing that story that we'd hear the piano start playing, and we would just look at each other like,
Who's that? You're like, oh, is that
And
her?
there was at least one time that we went to investigate and no one was there. Now, we were not exactly fast-moving kids, so someone might have left the piano, but there is the chance.
You never know.
Right? I know. I think my favorite story that Evan researched was about Mother Coo.
Mother Coo? What's that?
Oh yeah. So in Nova Scotia, there's a lot of, or especially in our history, there's been a lot of mining.
Oh,
And with that comes a lot of mining disasters, unfortunately.
yes. Okay.
But this Mother Coo, she was considered a witch of sorts who she was like mostly kind of like a local healer, if anything, but she predicted 3 of the big mining disasters that happened in Nova Scotia.
Mm.
And like it's very strange when you read the stories, because she would say like, oh, on this month or something, there's going to be a disaster with water or something, and people were pretty skeptical, but then it kept on kind of coming true. And then by the third one, it actually was to the point where they did an extra investigation in one of the mines just to check, because they were like, no, there must be something going on here. And they did an extra check, but found nothing. And then the next day, they had a disaster there, lots of lives lost in the mine. And
Oh
it
gosh.
yeah, and it's kind of it's very
So
interesting that she
is
was
this
able to predict these.
person Mother Coo? Do they still around or?
No, this was a long time ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. What is it about the mines? I know our Belle Island, we call it one of the most haunted places, if not the most haunted places in North America. We've had a lot of film crews over here from different places around the world investigating. I know I worked over there. I had my own experiences as a medical person there on night shifts, and that place is next level. So if you get a chance, go. Can you get down in your mine now? Do they do tours for
um,
people who are doing tourism? Can you get down there?
I'd say there's some mines like more in Cape Breton where you can tour. I don't know if you can tour the ones in Spring Hill where kind of the big mine disasters happen. I think those are pretty closed off there because, as the name suggests, as I suggested there, they're not too stable, unfortunately.
Right, right.
But yeah, I know they kind of have a big kind of reverence towards them because they were, I think, one of the biggest mining disasters in North America.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
quite well known.
Wow. That's really sad when stuff like that happens. So now for the people listening around the world, do you want to give a shout out to where people can find you and all your links and your socials? I'll pull up your link tree here, but you can see their link tree down on the bottom on the ticker also.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm our social media coordinator, so I'll take the lead on this.
Okay.
So we're on mostly Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at It Came from the Maritimes. We do have a Blue Sky account as well at ICFT Maritimes if folks are on there. So we release our episodes weekly every Wednesday. So every 2 weeks, we have a full length episode. So that's where we do a bit of a deeper dive. And then on the kind of in between weeks, so twice a month, we have what we call Maritime Minis, where we share shorter episodes. So we say folklore in 5 minutes or less. So those are for the topics that are still stories worth sharing, but we don't necessarily have a ton of information available about them.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got a lot of stuff on the go. So you've got minis and you've got regular ones, hey? Because I saw there was a
Yeah.
little difference in those. So, do you want to give any shout outs to anybody else while we're on?
No, with it, I think honestly, just
Um,
everyone. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh,
um,
well, yes. This is a very good point. So, Jeff McDonald, he has a recording studio here near Lawrencetown Beach in Nova Scotia. He records and produces our podcast for us.
Okay.
So his recording studio is called The Drum Room, and he also builds his own audio recording equipment and guitar pedals through 607 Audio. So we have a link to his page on our link tree. So if you're ever interested in, he's also a drummer, so like working with a local musician or recording artist, then we absolutely recommend checking him out. We're a little biased. He's a very good friend of ours, but he's an absolute treat to work with. And as much as Evan and I, we have the kind of folklore research and everything down, having him recording our podcast makes an absolute difference. So
Yeah, well,
yeah.
thank you so much for being on the show. It was great having some maritime folks on from Atlantic, Canada. It's really great to have y'all on. And thanks for being on the show. And you're listening on UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM on that Gulf. So now, guys, what kind of bog team music do you want to listen to? We've
What are
got
our
rap
options?
music, we got rock, we got 80s.
I'm all about the rock and roll, I'd say.
All right, we'll leave you guys with some paranormal or PNL bog team rock music. You can download on all streaming platforms and social media platforms. And don't forget to smash that subscribe button and tune in every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern on UPRN for Paranormal NL Podcast. And we'll leave you here with some rock music.
In the shadows, where the spirits meet, a team of souls continue to seek. Through the veil of time, they bravely tread, the boots on the ground team, in the land of the living, where hope is sown, the courage and faith like a beacon shone. Guided by love, the spirits unbowed, the boots on the ground team, forever proud. The lanterns are lights in the dark of the night, guided by whispers, by echoes of fight, in pursuit of the lost in the land of the free. The boots on the ground team, investigations are key. Across rocky shores and haunting mists, they chase the phantoms where sorrow exists. With each step they take, in silence profound, the boots on the ground team seeking what's to be found. Their footsteps resound in the halls of the past, their presence a beacon, a shadow they cast through the windswept moors and the ancient land's trees. The boots on the ground team are there so the spirits can speak. Through whispers of sorrow and echoes of past, in the heart of the darkness they seek to regain